The orbital platform shimmered like a jewel above Helios, phase swirling gas clouds, its curved docking arms stretching kilometers in every direction. The Galactic Tech Expo's main hall pulsed with energy, holographic displays from 100 species flickering between demonstrations of impossible engineering. Gravity-defying vehicles hovered without visible propulsion. Self-assembling nano-constructs danced through the air like metallic fireflies. The scent of ionized particles and exotic alloys mixed into something almost tangible. Dr. Marcus Reeves adjusted his USN uniform collar as he stepped through the shimmering force field entrance. The human delegation from the Pioneer trailed behind him, their boots clanging against the alien alloy floor in a steady, rhythmic cadence that stood out against the whisper. Quiet movements of other species. "Remember," Reeves muttered to Lieutenant Cara Vasquez as they passed a floating Zarathi crystal. "Harvester, its prismatic surface refracting light into intricate patterns across their faces. We're here to observe, not to engage." Vasquez snorted, a hand resting on the standard-issue plasma pistol at her hip. "Tell that to them." She nodded toward a cluster of Zarathi engineers gathered around a towering display of floating crystalline shards. The aliens' angular bodies refracted light like living gemstones, their multifaceted eyes tracking the humans with undisguised amusement. One particularly ornate Zarathi, his carapace etched with glowing blue circuitry, detached from the group and glided toward them on anti-grav pulses. "Ah," the alien said, his voice resonating through some unseen organ that made the words vibrate in Reeves' bones. "The primitive delegation has arrived." Reeves forced a smile. "High Engineer Vexlan, always a pleasure." Vexlan's crystalline fingers twitched in what humans had learned was the Zarathi equivalent of a dismissive wave. "Your persistence is admirable, though I cannot fathom why the Council insists on including your species in these exhibitions." His faceted eyes flickered toward the human display area, a dim corner between the lavish Krell insectoid hive, display, and a floating Tarkesian plasma garden. "Your technology is what? 2 centuries behind minimum standards?" A nearby Krell mechanist chittered, its segmented limbs clicking in amusement. The insectoid alien's compound eyes reflected Reeves' face 100 times over. "They still use wires," it hissed. "I saw their transmission schematics like fossilized data streams." Reeves felt Vasquez tense beside him but kept his voice even. "Reliable technology doesn't need to be flashy, Vexlan." The Zarathi made a sound like shattering glass laughter. "Come, let us see what reliability looks like in person." The alien procession flowed toward the human exhibit, drawing curious onlookers from a dozen species. Reeves' stomach tightened as they approached their assigned space. The USN engineers had done their best. Neat rows of standard human appliances lined the display tables, polished to a shine. But compared to the floating wonders around them, the toasters, microwaves, and coffee makers looked like artifacts from a museum. Vexlan stopped before a particularly ordinary, looking 4-slice toaster, tilting his angular head. "This is your contribution." He reached out with a crystalline finger, poking at the crumb tray. "It doesn't even have a neural interface." "It toasts bread," Reeves said simply. The gathered aliens erupted in harmonic vibrations, Zarathi laughter. A bulbous Tarkesian delegate pulsed with amusement, its gelatinous form rippling. They brought food preparation devices to a military technology expo. Vasquez's knuckles whitened around her datapad. Reeves shot her a warning look before addressing the crowd. Every piece of technology here was mass-produced for civilian use on Earth. No modifications, standard household items. Vexlan's entire body shimmered with condescension. How quaint. He turned to the assembled delegates, his voice carrying effortlessly. "Observe, colleagues. This is why the Federation denied humanity membership in the Core Systems Alliance. They cannot even master basic antigrav, yet they presume to stand among us." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Reeves noticed a young Krell apprentice recording the scene, its mandibles twitching in amusement. The weight of 100 alien eyes pressed down on him, but he kept his posture straight. "You misunderstand," Reeves said, running a hand along the microwave's smooth surface. "We don't see technology as something to worship, just tools to be used." He tapped the appliance's keypad. "This heats food in seconds. That coffee maker, perfect brew every time, programmed for 12 different styles. Our tech exists to serve people, not impress them." Vexlan's crystalline surface darkened, spoken like a species that has never achieved true innovation. He gestured grandly at the expo hall. "We manipulate gravity itself. The Krell engineer at the quantum level. What can your toasters do that compares?" Reeves exchanged a glance with Vasquez. Something unspoken passed between them, a silent calculation. Then Reeves smiled, slow and deliberate. "Would you like to find out?" The expo hall buzzed with energy as delegates from a dozen species floated between displays of shimmering alien technology. The Zorathi Pavilion dominated the center, its crystalline structures refracting light into dazzling patterns across the domed ceiling. Dr. Marcus Reeves adjusted his glasses as he watched another group of Krell mechanists pass the human booth without a second glance. Still nothing. Lieutenant Cara Vasquez leaned against their display table, her arms crossed over her USN uniform. The table held a sad collection of human appliances, a dented microwave, 3 toasters of varying sizes, and a coffee maker with a cracked carafe. Reeves sighed. "They won't even make eye contact. It is like we're displaying cave paintings." A burst of laughter erupted from the Zorathi Pavilion. High Engineer Vexlan stood atop a floating platform, his crystalline body refracting the light as he demonstrated a self-repairing alloy to an enraptured crowd of Krell and other delegates. "Watch this," Vasquez muttered as she grabbed a screwdriver from their toolkit. She flipped it in her hand before tossing it underhand toward the Zorathi display. The tool clattered against the polished floor, the sound cutting through the hum of conversation. Vexlan's faceted eyes flicked toward the noise. His voice carried across the hall, dripping with condescension. "Ah, the humans. Still using handheld tools, I see." The crowd tittered. Reeves felt his face grow warm but kept his voice steady. "They get the job done." Vexlan's platform glided toward them, the crowd parting like water. "Do they? Let me show you real engineering." He gestured, and a sleek Zorathi drone detached from their display, hovering silently beside him. This is a Flare, Class Sentry drone, self-repairing nano, alloy hull, plasma-based weaponry, and a cognitive matrix capable of independent tactical decisions. The drone rotated, its smooth surface rippling as it shifted configurations. The crowd oohed appreciatively. Vasquez snorted. "Cute. Can it make toast?" Laughter burst from the Krell mechanists, their chitinous limbs clicking in amusement. Vexlan's crystalline facets darkened. "Your primitive heating elements are a joke. We phased out resistive heating cycles ago." Reeves crossed his arms. "Then you won't mind putting your money where your mouth is." The hall fell silent. Vexlan's platform lowered until he was eye level with Reeves. "What are you proposing?" "A test. Your best drone against our primitive tech." Reeves gestured to their sad little display. Vexlan's laugh sounded like shattering glass. "You want to pitch your... what is that? A food warmer against a military-grade sentry?" "Not just one." Reeves reached into a crate beneath the table and pulled out another toaster, its chrome finish gleaming under the expo lights. 3 toasters, a microwave, and our coffee maker. The Krell mechanists erupted in laughter, their antennae twitching with amusement. One of them, a particularly large specimen with iridescent wing casings, stepped forward. "This I must see. High Engineer, surely you won't decline such an entertaining challenge." Vexlan's facets shimmered with irritation. "Very well, but I won't waste a flare on this farce." He gestured, and a smaller, older model drone detached from their secondary display. "This training unit will suffice." Reeves shook his head. "Ah, you said your tech was superior. Prove it with your best." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Vasquez leaned in, whispering, "You sure about this?" Reeves didn't take his eyes off Vexlan, Trust me. The high engineer's crystalline body pulsed with barely contained annoyance. Fine, but when your pathetic machines are reduced to slag, you will publicly acknowledge Zorathi technological supremacy. And when we win, Reeves countered, you give the USN equal standing at all future tech expos. No more primitive section. The crowd gasped. Vexislan's facets darkened to near opacity. Agreed, prepare your appliances. He turned to the assembled delegates. Witness the pinnacle of engineering versus relics from a backwater species. As the crowd moved toward the testing arena, Vasquez grabbed Reeves's arm. Marcus, what the hell are you doing? That drone will shred our stuff in seconds. Reeves began gathering their appliances, stacking toasters carefully in his arms. Remember Project Home Defense? Vasquez's eyes widened. That was a joke. We were drunk when we came up with that. Reeves grinned. Good thing I wasn't joking when I built it. He nodded toward the coffee maker. Grab that, and try not to spill any. It is the most important part. The Krell mechanists watched them carry their load toward the arena, their clicking laughter following like a swarm of insects. The largest one called after them, enjoy your last moments with functional appliances, humans. Vasquez shot them a glare over her shoulder. Keep laughing, bug. Boys, you're about to learn why humans don't need smart toasters. She lowered her voice as they reached the testing area. We are so getting caught, marshaled for this. Reeves set the toasters down with exaggerated care. Only if we lose. He plugged the first one into the arena's power supply. Now let's show these pricks why you should never underestimate human ingenuity. The crowd gathered around the transparent safety barrier as the Zorathi flare drone took position at one end of the arena, its plasma emitters humming to life. At the other end, 3 toasters, a microwave, and a coffee maker sat innocently on a table, their cords trailing to a single power strip. Vexlan's voice boomed over the crowd. Begin the countdown. A holographic timer appeared above the arena. Fay. Vasquez's fingers hovered over a small device in her pocket. On your mark, Doc. Reeves adjusted his glasses and whispered, activate Project Home Defense. The countdown hit 0. The testing arena hummed with energy as the Zorathi delegation floated into position, their crystalline bodies refracting the sterile white light. High Engineer Vexlan's form shimmered with amusement as he gestured toward the hovering flare. Class sentry drones, each one pulsed with violet energy, their self-repairing nano, armor shifting like liquid mercury. Dr. Marcus Reeves adjusted his glasses, his human fingers looking painfully soft compared to the razor-sharp appendages of the Krell mechanists observing from the sidelines. Lieutenant Cara Vasquez stood at his shoulder, her arms crossed as she watched the alien tech with professional disinterest. Begin the demonstration, Vexlan announced, his voice echoing through the chamber. Let us see what your primitive devices can accomplish against true engineering marvels. The flare drones activated with a harmonic chime, their plasma emitters glowing to life. They moved in perfect synchronization, forming an impenetrable defensive pattern above the testing field. Reeves simply nodded to Vasquez, who wheeled in a small cart bearing 3 toasters, a microwave, and a coffee maker. The Krell mechanists' antennae twitched in amusement, their clicking laughter filling the air. You can't be serious, one Krell hissed, its compound eyes reflecting the mundane appliances. Those haven't even been upgraded with basic anti-grav. Vexlan's crystalline surface rippled with condescension. We agreed to use unaltered human technology, did we not? Let them proceed with their kitchen implements. Reeves carefully arranged the appliances on the testing table, plugging each one into a standard power outlet. The microwave's digital display blinked Fei in cheerful green numerals. One toaster had crumbs in its slots. Activation sequence, Reeves murmured, tapping a code into his wristpad. The appliances beeped once, their normal startup sounds utterly mundane. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. The Zorathi delegation began to vibrate with suppressed laughter. Then the microwave door snapped open with a sound like a shotgun racking. The transformation happened faster than any of the aliens could process. The toasters sprouted thruster, equipped legs from their sides, their heating elements glowing white. Hot. The microwave unfolded like some terrifying origami, revealing a compact railgun turret where the rotating plate had been. The coffee maker's carafe retracted as its internal mechanisms reconfigured with a series of mechanical clicks. What in the 12 systems? Vexilon began, his crystalline form flashing alarm colors. Project home defense, Vasquez said with a feral grin. Engage. The toasters launched first, their thruster legs firing as they took to the air with surprising agility. The flare drones reacted instantly, plasma bolts streaking through the testing arena. But the toasters dodged with uncanny precision, their simple shapes making them harder to track than the angular Zorathi tech. One toaster banked hard, aligning its slots with a drone. With a sound like tearing metal, it ejected a spray of superheated bread shrapnel. The molten projectiles punched through the drone's nano armor like it was tissue paper, sending it spinning to the ground in a shower of sparks. The microwave turret whirred to life, its targeting array locking onto 3 drones simultaneously. A high-pitched whine built in its chassis before it released a focused EMP burst. The flare drones froze mid-maneuver, their systems overloading as they dropped like stones. Impossible, shrieked one of the Krell mechanists, its mandibles quivering. That is just a food heating device. The coffee maker chose that moment to make its move, its housing split apart, unfolding into a spider-like configuration with 8 articulated legs. The water reservoir reconfigured into a pressurized tank, and with a hiss of steam, it unleashed a jet of scalding liquid nitrogen coffee at the remaining drones. The effect was catastrophic. The Zorathi drones, designed to withstand plasma temperatures, had no defense against the sudden thermal shock. Their crystalline components shattered instantly, raining glittering debris across the testing floor. Vexilon's entire body had gone opaque with shock. This violates every principle of engineering. You can't just repurpose domestic appliances into weapons. Reeves adjusted his glasses again, watching as one of the toasters landed neatly on the testing table, its slots closing with a satisfied click. Why not? The components were all there. Heating elements make excellent weapons when you crank them up enough. The microwave already had a magnetron for generating electromagnetic pulses, and coffee makers. He gestured to the spider, like a machine now retracting its legs, have excellent pressure systems for liquid delivery. The remaining flare drone made a desperate last attack, its plasma emitter charging to maximum. Before it could fire, all 3 toasters converged on it, their thruster legs burning blue as they rammed the drone in perfect formation. The impact sent it careening into the wall, where it exploded in a shower of molten components. Silence fell over the testing arena. The Krell mechanists had backed against the far wall, their antennae pressed flat against their skulls in terror. Vexilon's crystalline form flickered through a spectrum of colors before settling on a dull, defeated gray. Vasquez walked over to the coffee maker, which had folded itself back into its original shape. She poured herself a cup and took a slow sip. Still makes a damn good espresso too. Reeves tapped his wristpad again, and the appliances powered down, their various weapons and extensions retracting until they looked like perfectly normal kitchen devices once more. One toaster even ejected a perfectly browned slice of bread, which Vasquez caught and took a bite from. You were saying something about primitive technology? Reeves asked, brushing crumbs from his lab coat. The testing arena hummed with energy as the Zorathi flare. Class drones took position, their crystalline bodies refracting light in prismatic patterns across the sterile white walls. High Engineer Vexilon floated beside his creation, his crystalline fingers adjusting a control node with practiced superiority. Across from them, Dr. Reeves stood with his hands in his pockets, flanked by Lieutenant Vasquez, who kept her arms crossed and her smirk barely contained. "Begin the test," Vexilon announced, his voice resonating with metallic confidence. The drones activated with a synchronized pulse, their plasma emitters glowing a dangerous violet. Reeves nodded to Vasquez, who knelt beside the small collection of human appliances. She plugged in the 3 toasters, the microwave, and the coffee maker, their cords trailing across the floor like dormant serpents. The Krell mechanists in the observation gallery chittered amongst themselves, their insectoid limbs twitching in amusement. "Activate Project Home Defense," Reeves murmured. The toasters beeped, a sound so mundane, so utterly human, that the Zarathi engineers actually paused. Then the first toaster sprouted 4 thruster, equipped legs from its sides, its metal casing unfolding like a blooming flower. The second and third followed suit, their heating elements glowing red, hot as they lifted off the table with a mechanical whir. The microwave's door snapped open, revealing not a spinning plate but a compact turret array. The coffee maker emitted a high-pitched whine, steam venting from its spout in aggressive bursts. Vexilon's crystalline body flickered in confusion. What? The first plasma bolt lanced out from a flare drone, aimed directly at the nearest toaster. The toaster dodged with a sudden burst of speed, its thrusters flaring as it banked sharply. Then it retaliated. Superheated bread shrapnel erupted from its slots, glowing white, hot as it shredded through the drone's outer plating. The second toaster strafed sideways, unleashing another volley that sent the Krell mechanists scrambling back in their seats. The microwave locked onto a cluster of drones and fired. Not bullets, not plasma, but a concentrated electromagnetic pulse that fried their circuitry mid-flight. 3 drones dropped like stones, their lights flickering out before they hit the ground. Vexilon's voice cracked. "What kind of barbaric species weaponizes breakfast appliances?" Vasquez grinned. "The kind that wins." The coffee maker chose that moment to unfold fully, its base splitting into spider-like legs as its reservoir reconfigured into a pressurized nozzle. A jet of scalding liquid nitrogen coffee sprayed across the remaining drones, their crystalline surfaces fracturing under the thermal shock. One drone tried to flee, only for a toaster to intercept it mid-air, slamming into its core with enough force to send it spinning into the wall. The Krell mechanists were no longer laughing. One of them shrieked as a toaster herded them into a corner, its heating elements pulsing like a predator sizing up prey. Reeves took a slow sip from a thermos he'd brought with him. "We call this adaptive repurposing. You should try it." Vexilon's crystalline form flickered erratically, his voice reduced to a staticky whisper. This is impossible. Consumer-grade machinery cannot." "Couldn't," Vasquez corrected, patting the nearest toaster as it settled back onto the table, its thrusters retracting with a satisfied click. "Or shouldn't." The arena was silent save for the faint hiss of cooling metal and the occasional sputter of dying drone components. The observation gallery, once filled with smug alien engineers, now held only stunned disbelief. Reeves set down his thermos. "Shall we proceed to the next test? Or would you like to surrender now?" Vexilon didn't answer. His drones were scrap. His pride was in tatters, and somewhere in the back of his mind, a terrifying realization took root. If humanity could do this with toasters, what else were they hiding? The coffee maker emitted a high-pitched whine that made the crystalline plates on Vexilon's body vibrate uncomfortably. The Zarathi high engineer took an involuntary step back as the innocuous appliance unfolded like some mechanical nightmare. 8 spindly legs extending from its base with hydraulic precision. Steam hissed from its vents as it rose to hover at eye level, its glass carafe swirling with something far more dangerous than morning brew. "Reeves," Lieutenant Vasquez said, her grin widening as she thumbed the safety off her sidearm. "Tell me you didn't." Dr. Marcus Reeves adjusted his glasses, watching with quiet satisfaction as the coffee maker's targeting array lit up. "Liquid nitrogen cooling system," he said. "Standard in high-end models back home, prevents scalding." The first flare drone lunged, plasma blades extending from its spherical core. The coffee maker's carafe tilted forward and unleashed a pressurized jet of black liquid. The drone didn't even have time to scream. The supercooled coffee hit its crystalline plating at Mach Fay flash, freezing the molecular bonds before the thermal shock shattered it like glass. Shards of Zarathi tech rained across the testing arena. Vexilon's voice cracked over the din. Cease this barbarism. Another drone swooped in, only for a toaster to intercept it mid-air. The humble appliance rocketed upward on miniature thruster pods, its slots snapping open to eject a hail of superheated bread shrapnel. The drone's sensor array melted under the assault, sending it spiraling into the microwave's waiting kill zone. The microwave door slammed down like a guillotine, its interior humming as it flooded the drone's systems with an EMP burst strong enough to fry a battleship. The Krell mechanists, who had been laughing minutes earlier, now scrambled over each other in panic. One of them, a chitinous engineer with too many limbs, tripped over a power cable and went sprawling. Before it could rise, a toaster landed on its thorax with a heavy thud, its heating elements glowing cherry red. "Please," the Krell whimpered, mandibles clicking in terror. The toaster beeped cheerfully across the arena. The last remaining flare drone tried to retreat, its plasma blades flickering. The coffee maker rotated smoothly, tracking its movement with inhuman precision. "Wait," Vexlan begged, his crystalline body flickering with distress colors. "That drone is a prototype. The research data the coffee maker fired." A perfect stream of liquid nitrogen coffee lanced through the air, striking the drone's core. For a split second, the drone hung there, frozen in a perfect sculpture of steaming black ice. Then gravity took over, and it shattered on the floor in a million glittering pieces. Silence Reeves took a slow sip from an actual, non-homicidal coffee cup. "Adaptive repurposing," he said. "You should try it." Vexlan's body darkened to an angry violet. "This is an outrage. You weaponize domestic appliances." Vasquez holstered her sidearm, shaking her head. "Doc, I think you broke him." One of the toasters, still hovering nearby, ejected a perfectly browned slice of toast directly into Reeves' waiting hand. He took a bite, chewing thoughtfully. "You know what the scary part is, Vexlan?" The high engineer's crystalline plates rattled. "There is a scarier part," Reeves smiled. This was the budget model. The Krell mechanists made a collective sound like a hive being stepped on. Outside the testing arena, the rest of the expo had ground to a halt. Alien delegates from a dozen species pressed against the observation glass, their appendages twitching in disbelief. A hulking Brintar engineer, its 4 eyes wide, turned to its companion. Did the humans just win a military engagement with a coffee maker?" The companion, a slender Yithian with bioluminescent markings, nodded slowly. "I believe they did." Inside the arena, the microwave beeped. Its display flashed popcorn ready. Vasquez sighed. "We're never getting invited back to this expo, are we?" Reeves shrugged. "Depends. You think the Zarathi will let us into the advanced weapons showcase next year?" The coffee maker, hovering innocently at his shoulder, emitted a soft, satisfied hiss of steam. Somewhere in the back of the crowd, a Krell mechanist fainted. The expo hall buzzed with panicked energy as the last Zarathi sentry drone clattered to the ground in a smoking heap. The coffee maker retracted its spider, like legs with a satisfied hiss, while the toasters settled onto their charging pads with quiet clicks. Dr. Reeves wiped a smear of soot from his glasses as Admiral Halpern's voice crackled through his earpiece. "Reeves, what in God's name did you just do?" Around them, Zarathi engineers scrambled over the wreckage of their prized drones, crystalline bodies flashing distress patterns. High Engineer Vexlan stood frozen near the testing arena, his faceted eyes reflecting the still, smoldering remains of his fleet. The Krell mechanists huddled together, their antennae twitching in erratic patterns as they whispered to each other. Reeves tapped his earpiece. "Just a friendly demonstration, Admiral." A holographic screen flickered to life above the arena as the Galactic Council's emergency transmission flooded the expo. The image split into 12 sectors, each displaying the furious face of a different species representative. The Centauri delegates' frills flared crimson. "This is an outrage. The humans have violated tech exhibition protocols." Vexlan finally found his voice. They turned household appliances into combat drones. His voice cracked. "No species weaponizes breakfast technology." Lieutenant Vasquez leaned against the human booth, arms crossed. "You said you wanted a security test. We just used what we had on hand. The Krell mechanist leader skittered forward, his chitinous plates rattling. This was no mere adaptation. Those machines demonstrated autonomous tactical decision-making. That coffee maker flanked our observation team. Reeves shrugged. Earth's got about 100 billion household appliances. Most have basic AI for maintenance and efficiency. He sipped from a fresh cup as the council members exchanged horrified looks. Imagine if we actually tried to weaponize them. The Tarkalan representative's fur stood on end. You're telling us every human dwelling contains potential combat drones. Not potential, Vasquez corrected. Functional. We just usually keep them in passive mode. She nodded at the microwave, which chirped happily as it folded back into its original form, unless provoked. Admiral Halpern's face appeared on a secondary screen, his weathered features set in a carefully neutral expression. Council members, let's not overreact. This was merely an engineering demonstration per the agreed-upon wager. Vexlan's crystalline body pulsed with indignant energy. Overact. Their coffee maker just took out 6 Flare-class sentries. The Centauri delegate slammed a taloned hand on their console. We demand immediate restrictions on human appliance exports. The security implications. Reeves cleared his throat. With all due respect, you were the ones who insisted our tech was primitive. We simply showed its flexibility. He gestured to the now quiet toasters. These models are 10 years old. The new ones have better targeting systems. A hush fell over the expo. The Krell mechanists stopped whispering. The Zarathi engineers froze mid-diagnostic. Even the council representatives fell silent as the implications settled over them, like a heavy blanket. The Tarkalan was the first to speak, their voice barely above a growl. How many upgrades have you made in those 10 years? Vasquez grinned. Wouldn't you like to know? Admiral Halpern smoothly interjected. I believe this concludes our demonstration. The USN Pioneer will be departing within the hour. His gaze swept across the assembled aliens. Unless the Council has further questions about human ingenuity. The silence stretched. The Centauri's frills slowly deflated. The Tarkalan's fur lay flat. Vexlan's crystalline form dimmed to a dull grey. Finally, the Krell mechanist leader bowed his head. No further questions. As the transmission cut out, the expo erupted into frantic activity. Zarathi engineers scrambled to cordon off the human booth, while security teams herded gawking spectators away. Vexlan approached Reeves, his usual arrogance replaced by something resembling wary respect. You planned this, the Zarathi hissed. Reeves adjusted his glasses. We brought what we were asked to bring. You're the one who challenged us to a duel. Vexlan's crystalline facets flickered through several colors before settling on a subdued blue. Your species is unpredictable. Vasquez clapped the alien on his rigid shoulder. Stick around, we're just getting started. Across the hall, the Krell mechanists were already packing their displays. Their leader kept casting nervous glances at the human appliances, now innocently sitting in their booth as if they'd never moved. One of the toasters popped up a fresh slice of bread with a cheerful ding. The mechanist shuddered. They're watching us. Reeves smiled as he powered down the systems. Nah. They're just toasting. He paused, unless provoked. By the time the USN Pioneer's shuttle arrived to collect them, the entire Zarathi contingent had retreated to their sector of the station. The human booth stood alone, its simple appliances now regarded with a mixture of fear and awe by the remaining expo attendees. As the airlock sealed behind them, Vasquez finally let out the laugh she'd been holding in. Did you see their faces when the coffee maker went full attack mode? Reeves checked his datapad. Admiral says the Council's already drafting new trade restrictions. Let them. Vasquez strapped into her seat as the shuttle engines roared to life. They'll never ban all our appliances. Half their species are addicted to human coffee makers already. The shuttle detached from the station, leaving behind a expo hall that would never look at toasters the same way again. Somewhere in the Zarathi sector, an emergency meeting was convening to discuss the terrifying implications of human primitive technology. And in a quiet corner of the human booth, the microwave beeped once. as if laughing. The USN Pioneer's engines hummed softly as the crew prepared for departure. Lieutenant Cara Vasquez leaned against the observation deck railing, watching the chaotic aftermath of the Tech Expo through the reinforced glass. Below, Zarathi engineers scrambled, like startled insects around the smoldering remains of their once proud drones. "You thinking what I'm thinking, Doc?" Vasquez asked, nudging Dr. Reeves with her elbow. Reeves sipped from his coffee mug, a real one this time, not the weaponized version currently being quarantined by panicked Expo security. That we should patent the flying toaster design before some corporation steals it. Vasquez snorted. "I was thinking we should have brought the waffle iron. That thing could have carved the Zarathi emblem into their own foreheads." Across the docking bay, a group of Krell mechanists huddled together, their antennae twitching nervously every time a human engineer walked by. One of them pointed a trembling claw toward the Pioneer. "Did you hear what they did to the refrigeration units?" A Krell whispered loud enough for nearby humans to hear. Another mechanist shuddered. "The humans turned them into cryo grenades during their last border skirmish, froze an entire Vorak battalion solid while making ice cubes." Vasquez smirked. "They're not wrong." Reeves set his coffee down as Admiral Halpern's voice crackled over the ship-wide comm. "All personnel prepare for undocking in 5, and Dr. Reeves my office now." Vasquez raised an eyebrow. "You in trouble?" "Probably." Reeves adjusted his glasses. "But worth it." As he walked toward the Admiral's quarters, the ship's corridors buzzed with activity. Engineers hauled crates labeled kitchen appliances, extreme caution, into secured storage. A young ensign paused to stare at one, "Sir." The ensign said, "Is it true we once modified a popcorn maker into an anti-ship weapon?" Reeves patted the crate. "Son, during the siege of Proxima, we rigged a dozen espresso machines to overload and take out a dreadnought's shield generators. Never underestimate human ingenuity or caffeine deprivation." When Reeves entered the Admiral's office, Halpern didn't look up from his datapad. "You realize you just violated 17 interstellar arms treaties. With toasters, sir." Halpern finally met his gaze. "The Zarathi High Council is demanding reparations. They claim psychological trauma." Reeves shrugged. "They started it." A slow grin spread across the Admiral's face. "Damn right they did." He tossed the datapad aside. "Earth Command wants you to head up a new division. Domestic appliance repurposing. Classified, of course." Outside, the Pioneer's engines roared to life. The ship pulled away from the docking bay, leaving the Expo, and a galaxy full of suddenly nervous aliens behind. Back on the observation deck, Vasquez watched as the last Zarathi transport fled the system. "Think they'll ever invite us back?" Reeves joined her, hands in his pockets. "Doubt it, but I hear the Krell are hosting next year." He nodded toward a crate marked blenders. "Do not deploy without authorization." Vasquez grinned. "Oh, this is gonna be fun." As the Pioneer jumped to warp, the final transmission from Helios, Faye crackled over the comm. It was a Krell mechanist, voice trembling. "By the 7 moons, they turned a toaster into a warship. And from that day forward, the galaxy learned never underestimate human primitives tech."